Hello and welcome back to Skipping Through Theatre, the podcast where we celebrate the magical performance from the unforgettable musicals and the powerful plays to the TV shows we can't stop talking about, and the behind-the-scenes stories that bring it all to life. It's about the laughter, the drama, and the moments that stay with us long after the curtain falls. So settle in and let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to Skipping Through Theatre. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Maddie.
Today we're stepping into the world of ballet with a brilliant guest.
Our guest today is a ballet dancer, George Murray-Nightingale, who has performed in productions including Swan Lake and many other ballet performances.
George, thank you so much for joining us today.
Let's start at the beginning. When did you first start dancing?
Okay, so my journey to dance I think is quite typical. So my older sister danced a lot, and as a baby I used to go and pick her up from her classes, and my mum just said I used to just join at the door and watch at the window. So I think I was about 2 years old when I went into my first baby ballet class, and then I think I've just been hooked ever since, I guess.
What made you fall in love with ballet in particular?
I loved all dance styles growing up. I loved everything: tap, musical theatre, jazz, contemporary. Trust me, you're more. I did every single dance style you can think of. But I think with ballet, I think there was just something about the elegance of it, that the art of something so challenging looking so easy. I just found that so fascinating, super fascinating how dancers can mentally train themselves with that discipline. That's what I loved about it. Also, my sister was my hero growing up, so seeing her, in a tutu and point shoes, I just wanted to be like her, I guess. So yeah, ballet is definitely like a soulmate for me, like a true love.
Yeah. Was there a moment where you realised you wanted to do ballet professionally?
Well, I always knew I wanted to be on the stage, 100%. I think it wasn't until I was about 16. I was training at the Hammond School. Shout out Hammond, the lower school, and my ballet teacher at the time said to me, you've got a really good facility to do ballet professionally. And I think that's when it kind of clicked for me that that's where I was going to go. Because I was definitely at the age of 16 questioning whether I wanted to do MT or ballet, but I also realised that ballet was something I couldn't come back to. If I wanted to do ballet, I had to do it now, where with MT I feel like I could go into that path later on in life if I chose to,
So you've performed in Swan Lake, which is one of the most famous ballets ever. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was kind of wild, to be honest. I don't think I'll ever forget the moment I put on the swan pants and the swan makeup for the first time. I think that's a feeling that I'll never forget, and it was definitely surreal. It's hard because that ballet is so physically demanding, especially for the male identifying dancers. You're on as a swan every single night. It's so physically challenging. And sometimes you were doing 10 shows a week. So you can imagine the toll that has on your body. Yeah, it's a lot.
Absolutely.
And I ended up doing Swan Lake for about just over 14 months. I think in the end I did 213 shows of it.
You must have been exhausted.
Yeah, I was really tired. And my body was sore, so I'm definitely giving myself a break afterwards. It was amazing, such a cool experience. And it was the first role that I've had to do where I've had to change my appearance. So I had to completely shave my beard, shave my head for it, obviously because I had to be painted every night, and that's the identity. That's the visual identity of the swan. So it was interesting. I'm used to being a character when I've put on the wig and the makeup and then I can take it off at the end of the night, where with this it was I had to take that visual identity that I don't usually represent as myself home with me, with the no hair and stuff. So that was
Mm.
interesting. But it was amazing. It was just amazing to do a Swan Lake where it was all men, in Act 2 and Act 4. That was just such a surreal experience, and the music's incredible.
Mm.
Mm.
For anyone who hasn't seen it before, what makes Swan Lake such a special ballet?
Well, I think with the classic, like the classical version, I think there's just such, I think everyone can relate to the story in some way of heartbreak. There's a lot of heartbreak in the
Mm.
traditional story, especially with the
Mm.
Odette character. Um, and visually, to see like a quarter ballet, it in total like unison is breathtaking. I don't know
Mm.
if you've seen English National Ballet. They do it in the Round at the Royal Albert Hall
Yeah,
in London, and it's just you're
it's
like,
gorgeous.
yeah, you can feel that like the anticipation of the audience in the air waiting for Act 2 to happen. Um,
Mm.
where with like Matthew Bourne's version, he's taken that idea of the swan but looked at the animal more closely, and he's seen that they're actually quite aggressive. They're not vulnerable characters.
Mm.
Um, it's almost like they're beautiful, but if you get too close, they'll bite. Do you know what I mean? They're very
Yeah.
protective. Um, so it was really interesting to, you know, look at the character of the swan in that way. And it was just so different for me because I've been in ballet companies for like 11 years. So to then go to do a Swan Lake where, I'm dancing in bare feet was, it was actually really fresh for me. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I really enjoyed the experience.
Mm.
It's nice that you're like able to actually get a different feel for what it's like though. Because I think that's really important, especially being a dancer.
Absolutely. I think, well, Matt Swan Lake was my third version of Swan Lake that I've ever done. So I've done Swan Lake 3 times, and I have to say Matt's version is my favorite. I mean, it's everyone's favorite. It's so iconic.
Yes.
Um, and you did feel like you had that like Billy Elliot moment when you were like
Oh,
going on for
yes.
Act 2. Um, yeah, it was incredible.
It must be like fun having the different varieties of it as well, because it's similar, but like if you got the different versions, so it must be quite fun also having to be in different ones.
Yeah, it's similar but so different.
Yeah, but you hear the music in a different way. That's what I
Mm.
found. I find that you hear Tchaikovsky's score differently with different interpretations because it's as a dancer you're definitely a canvas for the creative's vision for the piece. So you do see it, you start to see it through the creative's eyes, um, and how they've heard the music, which
Mm.
I found really interesting.
Do you have a favorite moment in the ballet?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love Act 2 because there is the whole of. I think people think Matthew Vaughan Swan Lake, they're expecting the swans the entire time, so they don't realise that you've actually got a whole act at the start of the show where you don't see a swan. So,
Mm.
you know, you definitely feel that anticipation as soon as there's the scene change into the lake scene. You feel the audience waiting for us, and as soon as you make that entrance, it's just, it is a bit nerve-wracking. I'm not going to lie. Act 2 was always a bit nerve-wracking, especially if I was fatigued, because you've got to have a lot of energy. People have a certain expectation of what they're going to see, so you have to deliver to that. And
Mm.
also, you're not working by yourself. You're working in a group. I think there was like 14 swans on at one time, so it's not about you. It's about the collective.
Mm.
Um, and I really enjoyed that. I actually really enjoyed working with the men in that way, because usually it's the quarter ballet girls that get to do that in like Snowflakes in Nutcracker, or
Mm.
the Willies in Giselle. So it was nice to get that experience, to work
Mm.
with like a male quarter ballet in a way. Um, and also at the end of Act 2, when you all leave the stage, we all run off together, and then you hear the audience cheer. You know you've got them on your side. So when it comes back to Act 4, they're excited to see you again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a special feeling knowing that everybody's in it together. That's a really it's good to be part of a team. And if everyone's if,
Mm.
if everyone's feeling like eighth show of the week, everyone's tired, but because everyone is feeling that way, it kind of, you actually end up having a good show because they hype you up. Like we're all in this together kind of feeling.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the lovely thing though, because it's in the end of the day, it's just like a big family, especially because you're all in it together and you're all supporting each other and you're all going through the same thing in the week. It's just such a lovely thing that can like that just brings you all together.
100%, and you need it too. You definitely need it when you're like touring. Like for Swan Lake, I
Mm.
think we went to something like 12 countries. Like we're in China, we're in Korea, went to Paris, we went everywhere all over the world. So, you know, you're in foreign places too. So you do rely on your castmates to support you, not only through the difficult show, but also navigating your day, you know, in a place that maybe
Mm.
doesn't speak the language that you're used to. Maybe the cuisine's not what you're expecting.
Yeah. Ballet dancers train incredibly hard. What does a typical rehearsal day look like for you?
Oh, good question. Okay, so I'll start off when I wake up. I'm just going to start like right from my day. So from the moment I wake up, I'm already thinking about like fueling myself, and my very first steps out of bed to like the shower or to the kitchen to get my breakfast is like I'm already judging how my body's going to go that day and what I need to do to get warm. Some days it feels
Mm.
great. I know I don't need to do a huge warm up, but some days if things are a bit sore or a bit tight, I know I have to do a longer warm up. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I always start off with definitely a cup of coffee because that is like a warm hug in the morning.
Yeah.
Um, for
Need the
me,
energy.
anyway, absolutely. I always have a big hearty breakfast full of protein, and then I always have a really, really like boiling hot shower because for my body loves heat. So if I always try and get it, especially on my legs, because it just helps flush out maybe some like lactic acid that's like stayed there from the rehearsals the day before. Um, that's what I found works for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but that's what works for me.
Mm.
Obviously, I go to the studio. I try to give myself between an hour and 45 minutes warm up, just because I like to stretch, I like to roll out, I like to say hello to my colleagues. I don't like to rush into the studio ready for class.
Yeah.
Class would usually be between either 10:30 or 11, and we'll do training for like an hour and a half. Um, and to me, class is very meditative. So that is like going to yoga for me. You know, it's very internal.
Mm.
I don't use class to perform. I use it to iron out kinks from the day before.
Yeah.
Um, and then we'd be rehearsing really until from like 12 till like 3 o'clock really. Um, and it's usually, well, this, if from my, when I was at the Australian Ballet, I danced there for just under 8 years. We'd be rehearsing during the day for our next program, our next season. So, for example, it could be we'd be opening like say Sleeping Beauty in the Sydney Opera House like next month. So we'd be rehearsing that during the day, and then from 3 o'clock till 6, you'll have your break, and then from 6 till 7:30, you're getting ready for the show, you're warming up, and then from 7:30, you're performing a piece that you've been that it's not the piece that you've been rehearsing during the day, if that makes sense. You're rehearsing a
Yeah.
different production during the day to then what you're performing at night. So maybe in the evening you're performing Swan Lake, but in the day I've been rehearsing Sleeping Beauty, and then I get home. Performance finishes. I get home usually at like 11, between 11:30, and that's
Oh
when I have
wow.
like a big heart. Yeah, it's a long day, so
Yeah.
it's a full like 12-hour day. So from 11 till like yeah, usually 11:30 is when I get home. Then after that, that's when I'll have my big meal because I don't like to eat a lot before the show because I hate
Mm.
dancing on a full stomach.
Oh yeah.
It just doesn't feel good like dancing in like costumes that are maybe quite tight as well, and
Mm. It's quite
um,
uncomfortable.
it's super uncomfortable, and you just don't know when you eat food to things digest at like a slower rate than other things. So I
Yeah.
just like to have my meal after the show. Um, and then I'll stretch and roll out just to make sure the body's fine. And then honestly, I go to bed. Like I don't really do crazy. Whilst I'm eating my dinner, obviously, and it's rolling out, I'll have my like Netflix on or something. But
Mm.
that's kind of the day. Long
That's
day.
That is very long, but to be honest, it doesn't sound like chaotic. It just sounds quite relaxed and chilled.
Yeah, I mean, you say
Or
that,
is
but
it chaotic?
it is. I mean, because I mean, with the nature of ballet, it's like people are injured and going off all the time. So sometimes you're having to
Yeah.
navigate changes for the show that night. Sometimes for very, very short on numbers, and sometimes you're learning a role literally last minute to go on. I've had it where I've
Ooh.
been told at the 5 minute call, you're going on for a principal role in 5 minutes. Yeah, I've had that
No.
before. So
I would
yeah,
freak
and that changed.
out.
Yeah, because like during the day, you've not prepped to go on for like a major role that night. You've prepped to go on for a different role.
Yeah.
So I've also had it where I've done a full day of rehearsals and I was on for Mad Hatter in the evening, and I was the only Mad Hatter left. Everyone else had been injured. Um, I was the last one standing, and then during one before the show, I got a major back spasm and I couldn't move.
Oh
So
my.
I then had to, yeah. So I had to. We were running around trying to figure out what I could do to. I had to go on that night. Obviously, there was nobody else, so I had to call a physio in. The physio had to tape my back in a way that I wasn't putting pressure on the muscle that had a spasm, and yeah, it can be stressful.
Wow. Yeah. That's
but it's
insane.
Mm.
but it's also like what I've learned also during the time is that it's important to realize when it's stressful and to get to develop exercises that will calm you down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I always put my hands if I can tell that I've got stress for the show that night, I always put my hands on my ribs because I can always tell if my rib cage is like flared with like heavy breathing. It's just like
Yeah.
almost like I press onto my ribs with my hand to almost like exhale the air, almost like I've got like
Mm.
rocks on my chest because it just makes you like
Yeah.
actually like be grounded.
Mm.
What's the most challenging part of being a professional dancer?
Oh, stamina is definitely one. I think using your body
Mm.
8 times a week, it's just so physical. I think that's definitely a challenge. And what's also a challenge is that it's not going to be good every day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I've had it where I dance really well one day, and then I come into a rehearsal the next day, and I can't even do a double pirouette. Like there's just something about my body is just saying no
Mm.
today. And sometimes you have to just let it go and be like, you know what, today's the day not to work on the pirouettes.
Yeah.
Today's the day to work on the thing that the body actually like enjoys doing, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
that's definitely a big thing because I think your body is obviously it's the main part of what you're doing, and you really need to take care of it. Otherwise, it's yeah.
and the recovery time is so short that sometimes you haven't recovered before you got to be back in the
Mm.
studio or back into warm up. So it's also realizing what you need on your like downtime. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and what fills your cup outside of the studio. For example, like on my days off, I try and see all my friends. I try and do like normal things, like I go for dinner, I go for drinks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not be in the whole like ballet mindset 7 days a week because I think that's also not healthy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's really important to give your body a rest.
Oh, 100%.
Mm. What do you find is the most rewarding part?
I think speaking to people at stage door is really rewarding and like the impact that your performance has had on people. Like especially when I did the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland, the amount of that was my first like big, huge role, and the amount of messages I got on social media of people was like actually like I was shocked because I just didn't realize like people would enjoy my performance so much that they spent the time to reach out to me. You know, that was really special, and that's something I'll like treasure forever. And also, when I announced that I was leaving Oz Ballet, the amount of messages I got from people being like saying that they can't wait to see what I'm doing next, that was also super special. Um, yeah, I mean, when I left Oz Ballet, I knew I was doing Swan Lake, so
Mm.
obviously I can't say anything until it's a cast announcement. But
Yeah.
secretly, you're just like, oh, um, yeah, something will come, I'm sure, knowing that what's happening. But uh,
Yeah. It's amazing that you had the support from everyone. It just really shows the people that you're around and how much they treasure you.
Well, that's it. A lot of the time as dancers too, you're very, especially as professional dancers, yes, you have coaches, but it's that you're very on your own. It's very like what you need to do. Like
Mm.
a coach isn't going to
Mm,
hold your hand through your training. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it is special when you feel like your intuition has paid off.
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have a favourite role you performed so far?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think the Mad Hatter is super special. I mean, Chris Wheeldon is a genius, and his Alice Adventures in Wonderland was just like, to me, it's the best ballet like in the world because he just marries classical ballet and like musical theatre so beautifully.
Mm.
Um, and also like stepping into the shoes of Stephen McRae. I mean, that's just like mind blowing to me.
It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, it was super special, and that's the reason why I wanted to finish my time with Oz Ballet on that role because I was they knew me for it. It was my big thing there, so um,
Yeah.
that role will be in my heart forever, like absolutely forever, and I could dance that role until I retire. That's how special it is to me. I would never ever get bored of it.
Yeah.
Um, and you know what? If they called me, if somewhere called me tomorrow and said get on a plane and come and do it, I would, without question, I'd go and do it.
Mm. Is there a dream ballet or role you'd love to perform one day?
Oh, I mean, I think I'm very lucky to say that every dream role I've wanted to do, I have done. So I've always wanted to do
Wow.
Matthew on Swan Lake, ticked
That's
that
amazing.
off.
Mm.
I always wanted to do Mad Hatter, I've ticked that off, and not just ticked it off, I did like, you know, a lot of shows of it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really in a really privileged position. And obviously, there's so much more that I want to do, but I think the main ones I have actually done, and that's, I mean, I'm not even 30 years old yet, so I'm really pleased with that.
Well, you've done literally like an amazing job. That's
Oh,
crazy. You're so
thank you. I
young
mean,
as well.
yeah, I mean, I'm just very privileged, and I'm very privileged that
Mm.
I've literally performed in every area of the world as well. So I'm very, very lucky. There is roles I want to do, but I just don't want to like, I don't like to put everything on it. So then if it doesn't happen, I'm really disappointed.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, because then even if like it doesn't happen, the role doesn't happen for me, um, I still want to look at that role and be like, oh, that's such a beautiful like thing for someone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to be bitter
100%.
about it.
It's
Um,
best to remain a positive mindset because otherwise, if you're negative all the time, it's just not really going to get you anywhere.
and also like it's only like ballet. Do you know what I mean? Like you're not like
Yeah.
Mm.
although it's been my life, it's like not like you're not you know it's there's with what's going on in the world right now. There's a lot.
Yeah.
So like you should also remind myself that I'm very privileged to have done what I've done, and I'm very privileged to you know to have to be on stage. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, lots of our listeners are young performers. What advice would you give to someone who wants to become a ballet dancer?
I would say study all types of theatre. Don't just study ballet. Look at opera, look at plays, look at musical theatre, look at all styles of dance because everything informs each other. Um, you learn stagecraft by watching a pro do what they do best, whether that's acting, singing, dancing. Look at it all.
Mm.
Hmm.
Plus, I think it's good to get a good wide range of things that you may enjoy as well, because it's nice to have many options as well.
Definitely.
100%. 100%.
Okay, let's finish with a few quick questions.
Okay, here we are. 3, 2.
One,
Favourite ballet?
Alice Adventures in Wonderland.
favorite theatre or stage you've performed on?
Oh, okay, can I say two? It would
Yeah,
be the Sydney
yeah.
Opera House and the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden.
And finally, do you have a pre-show ritual?
Um, No, actually, I don't. I think my pre-show ritual would be just to stay calm.
Hmm.
Stay calm, and because I think if you start getting in a routine of like I have to have my banana at this time, I've got to have my Gatorade at this time, it's like
Yeah.
if something's a bit off, it could ruin your show. So I try not to do any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, George, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thanks for listening to our audience to Skipping Through Theatre.
Make sure to follow the podcast on social media or your favourite streaming platform so you never miss an episode.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye!